Yeah, it's a real pleasure for me and an honor to be with you here this morning. And thank you very much that you followed our invitation to this press conference. Media got already some briefings yesterday from other observer missions. Nevertheless, I want to state that the European Election Observer Mission is the largest international mission, and we are the ones who stay the longest in this country from the very first day of the campaign till the end of the electoral process. Anyway, the elections to the 18th Parliament have been broadly viewed as a component of an ongoing political reform process in a region marred with violent conflicts. This reform process was and is supported by the European Union, and the Election Observation Mission is one instrument that we have. And you might know that the EU has done more than 100 election observation missions all around the world. On election day, our mission had 108 observers from the 28 EU member states and additionally from Norway, from Switzerland and Canada deployed across Jordan. I was one of them. I observed different polling stations in Amman. We visited altogether 459 polling stations in total and observed later on the counting and the tabulation of the results. The EU Election Observation Mission will observe the electoral process until its completion, as I mentioned at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, to start with, we can say that the Independent Election Commission delivered a well-administered and inclusive election, and compliments for that. Notwithstanding, there was a lack of access of observers and candidates to intermediate stages of the tabulation process, and we observed some incidents in different polling stations. But the election day was overall conducted in a transparent manner. Nevertheless, for future elections, we think there is room for improvement in the legal framework of this country. In particular, respect for key principles, such as the universality and the equality of the vote, and the right to stand as candidate. That could be further enhanced. The campaign, which took place between the 15th August and the 18th September, was peaceful overall, and isolated reports of minor campaign-related incidents came to our knowledge. Opening, voting, and counting proceeded as well peacefully and calmly, and voting was generally well organized in 441 out of the 459 polling stations visited by our observers. Although we recognized there was often campaigning in close vicinity of the polling centers, which is not in line with the law. Campaigning was reported quite all over the country, up to the doorsteps of the polling centers, quite remarkable. Secrecy of the ballot was respected, I must say, in most of the polling stations observed, not everywhere, but in most of the polling stations. The Independent Election Commission employed its information technology networks efficiently. There was really a modern election with the newest IT technology. Our observers reported incidents in several districts, such as Karak, Madaba, Ailun, Badia Central, and Badia North. Voter registration was completed within legal deadlines. The former active system for voter registration was changed to a passive one, resulting in some 80% increase in the number of registered voters. On the night of the 20th September, the Independent Election Commission announced a turnout of some 36%, exceeding the voter participation in the 2013 elections by some 200,000 voters. Ladies and gentlemen, the legal framework includes new legislation that implemented fully or partly a number of recommendations made in the 2013 by the EU Election Observation Mission. Still, under the current districting, large urban areas are underrepresented and sparsely populated, and rural ones are considerably overrepresented. The districting falls short of ensuring the equality of the vote, although it marks an improvement compared to the 2013 districting. While certain requirements for candidacy are unnecessarily restrictive, the registration of candidatures by the IEC was accomplished in an inclusive and efficient manner respecting legal deadlines. The legal framework affords to voters and candidates possibilities to appeal to the IEC and to the courts against inaccurate registrations and rejections. While the courts discharge the candidate appeals in an impartial and timely manner, the absence of a second recourse of appeal leaves some uncertainty as regards to particular aspects of the rules of candidacy. A recent bylaw introduced new criteria of funding of political party campaigns, including positive incentives for winning seats and enhancing female and regional membership. Candidates without declared party affiliation are entirely self-funding, subject to predefined spending limits. And now, since candidate audit reports are only to be submitted after the election to the IEC upon request, there is a potential of leniency in the ultimate enforcement of the regulations in the post-election period. Ladies and gentlemen, there were 252 registered women candidates, an increase of some 25% compared to the 2013 elections. Notwithstanding the increase of women candidates, the absence of a constitutional guarantee against discrimination of women continues to underpin their historical low political representation. On the other hand, the mission observed some initiatives aimed at enhancing participation of disabled persons, which is good and improved. Despite that in quite a number of polling stations, it was difficult for disabled persons to have access. In an inclusive and timely manner, the IEC accredited more than 13,000 national observers and 488 international observers, among them the 108 from the European Union. Civil society observers are still obliged to report possible irregularities first to the IEC and only after that to make them public. I must remind that there is no legal provision regulating parallel vote tabulation by civil society observers and the access of the public to their findings. There is no legal provision restricting their freedom of expression, and imparting of information is not in line with Jordan's international legal obligations. Anyway, to give justice, the EU EOM was informed by both the Independent Election Commission and civil society representatives that an agreement was reached on this issue. Razet, yesterday at a press conference, announced and revealed its parallel vote tabulation findings. So there was a compromise later on after the voting day. Now, the current media legal framework, at times restrictive and vague, results in self-censorship. During the observation period, 3 orders banning media reports on specific topics were publicly issued, limiting freedom of expression guaranteed under national and international law. These are the observations I mentioned in my verbal statement. You have the preliminary report where we are more explicit and more in detail. Ladies and gentlemen, our work is not over. The EU Election Observation Mission will continue its observation on the allocation of seats, the announcement of results, and on complaints and appeals. A comprehensive final report with recommendations offered for consideration to the Jordanian authorities for future elections will be issued within 2 months of the completion of the electoral process. I will personally return to Jordan and present the final report and discuss the recommendations during my return visit. Now I will leave the floor to my colleague Maria Gabriel, the head of the European Parliament delegation that has joined our mission to observe election day procedures, a short-term observation mission. And I thank you and all your colleagues for being with us. I thank the Jordanian authorities and the Jordanian people, I must say, for a really warm welcome. I enjoyed really the openness and the friendliness of the people all these days. A really warm welcome that they reserved to our mission. I extend my appreciation to the Jordanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and to the Independent Election Observation Mission for their cooperation. The mission is grateful to the EU delegation, the ambassador is here, to the diplomatic missions of the EU member states, many of them are here, and of course to our friendly cooperative states, Canada, Norway, and Switzerland, resident in Amman, for their support. Thank you again for inviting us to be with you, and thank you for your attention.